Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Ellie in Space here in the Now You Know studio to talk about the latest and greatest Tesla news of the day. A lot going on in the Tesla community. Excuse me, I'm doing a broadcast right now.
Who are you?
What? Oh, Ellie in Space. I came here, of course, by rocket.
What?
Wow, okay, well, Ellie in Space here in the studio of Zac and Jesse, Now You Know. Thanks for letting me come over.
Thanks for coming by. It's awesome to see you.
And your setup is wonderful.
Thank you.
And I just thought that we could have a casual conversation, maybe, give your channel some exposure. Not that it needs... I mean, you guys are doing really well. But tell us a little bit about, how the channel started and where it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, we started... I think what you guys know of as our channel, in a Model X. We drove from Boston to San Francisco and back. And this was back in 2016 when there's only a few ways across the country on Superchargers.
Oh, yeah.
So most of the people we told that we were doing it were like, you're doing what? In a what?
Yeah. And we took two of the three routes. We took the middle route through Kansas, and then we took the northern route through Montana. And so we actually went from Boston to San Francisco up to Seattle, across, through Detroit, and up to Toronto, Montreal, and then back home. So we were
75 Superchargers.
We pushed it,
and they all worked perfectly.
75.
Yeah.
And we would rate them, and that's got into our show. Basically, Jesse and I would rate them from 1 to 10 and tell about, was there a good
if we liked them.
Which I love that, by the way. I don't know if you remember a couple months ago, I actually sent you a review, and I love that you do that. It's really a great way to get your community involved, and then also just kind of learn, because every Supercharger is different. The amenities around them are different. And I'm learning all of this because I'm, now a Tesla owner.
Tell us about your trip, because you just did a trip and you said you didn't like some aspect of it.
So I'm sure I made some mistakes. I took my Model 3, brand new Model 3, so different than yours, from Texas to California and back. One of the biggest problems I had was stopping about every 2 hours, right? I have the long range for a reason. And I was told after actually talking to Kilowatts about it that perhaps I was going a little too fast.
That's what I was going to ask you. Every 2 hours, so that's like 150 miles?
Yeah.
How fast were you going?
Well,
Ellie.
I was going pretty fast.
It's not a spaceship.
I was probably going like 80, 85.
Okay, but you're in the middle of the country. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, but it was also very hot. So
Air
I think
conditioning's on.
Those two things were not working in my favor. But, and then I also wondered if maybe it was just, the Superchargers are spread out in some areas. So, I'm getting there with 40% battery, 50% battery, and it still wants me to charge because otherwise there's too big of a stretch.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a learning curve for me. But, aside from that, I'm not sure what I could have done differently other than go slower.
Yeah. Well.
But, I mean, we're in a Tesla.
We were going 80 on our trip, too.
Yeah.
I think the thing was we were just so impressed because our expectations were so low.
Right.
Not necessarily low, but... Well, they were low. We thought we weren't going to make it.
Right.
Yeah.
We got to Kansas at one point to see the largest ball of string, and I thought, we're just going to live here because there's going to be no way to get out.
Right. And I remember it was, it's literally we're heading just due west, right?
Yeah.
And then to get to the largest ball of twine, we had to get off the highway, travel straight north, because it's Kansas, you can only travel in 4 different directions. Travel straight north for 20 miles and then come back. And, they spaced the Superchargers pretty far apart.
Right.
And so we were really worried that we weren't going to make it. We were fine. But yeah, like it was kind of like that, where we're like, we made it and we're like, this is great.
Yeah.
Where I think most people would just be like, good.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
Well,
So it just took longer than you wanted? Is that, yeah.
It took longer. And then also even at, because I tried to hit the best Superchargers, the fast chargers. And so I was finding that they were not fast. And maybe it's because they were full, but some of them were not so full. So again, I'm fairly new. It's a lot different to be a Tesla owner versus just riding in a bunch of other people's Teslas. And that's what I'm learning. I thought that I knew a lot about it, and I don't.
You haven't become a Tesla nerd yet.
Yes.
That's the thing.
I know.
Well, I think the maybe the biggest problem is that you want to be hitting the lowest charge that you can. So like when you arrive at the Supercharger, and you probably already know this, you want to be there with like 5-10%.
Which I'm not.
And it's super scary to do
Yeah.
that. It's like,
Right.
I don't want to get there with 10%. What if I need to, what if there's a detour?
Right.
Exactly.
But the crazy people, the people, I mean, like the Kyle Connors of the world.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He's like, yeah, I get there with 0%. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? He's like, well, you switched it into neutral? What are you thinking? You know?
Well, and then I asked Kilowatts about, okay, well, is there reserve, right? Like how you would have on an ICE car. And there is a little bit, but I've heard that reserve has shrunk due to Tesla wanting to advertise that they have longer range, which I thought was pretty sneaky. But at least there's a little bit.
I mean, at the same time, though, their supercharger network has been getting denser.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that you aren't going to run into that
Right.
as much.
Right.
I remember when we first were driving around, the reason we call our show, by the way, Tesla Time News, is because when we showed up to a supercharger back in 2016, we were the only Model X. And so all the Model S owners would get out of their cars to come talk to us.
Yeah.
And we would talk about, like, what's going on with Tesla? What's going on with Elon? What's the news? What are we talking about? So that was Tesla Time.
Right.
Of course, now everyone is just watching YouTube videos
Yeah.
on their car.
But you got to kill that time. It's,
You got to kill
know.
the time. And back then, we would all. I feel like I'm talking like. Oh, back in the old days, we'd all sit outside and we'd all talk. That's what it felt like. And so I remember we talked to a guy, and he was like, "Yeah, I run out of charge all the time." And we're like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, it says I have 200 miles, and I go driving." And we're like, "How fast are you going?" He's like, 95. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
That's why.
It's not rated for
Right.
95 miles an hour.
Right.
And he wasn't using the in-car navigation.
We kind of forget that we're driving through soup, that air is actually a
Well,
thing.
you run into that a lot
Yeah.
when
I mean,
we talk about
because of space, right?
Yeah.
Because,
ships.
Yeah.
as soon
Otherwise,
as you
we
get
wouldn't be able
space,
to land.
Right.
So, yeah, when you're driving that fast through soup, it really does slow the car down.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. Well, and so those are things that, perhaps I am to blame. But what I'm not to blame, and the other thing that was a big, concern, was the phantom braking. I had about 8 before I was like, screw this, I'm not going to do it. And some of it was on cruise control, so not even on FSD beta. Some of it was on FSD beta, but it was weird because it was usually during the daytime with a, open, empty highway. What's it
So
seeing?
it wasn't even like a bridge or something.
Couldn't
it was
see
just-
anything that would trigger it, and that was very, jarring, concerning. Am I going to get rear-ended?
No,
this
I mean,
is
you're-
waking
you're
up my
in-
passenger because it's jerking.
Exactly. Because it really slams it on.
So what's
Yeah.
in? I feel like, obviously I love Tesla. I wouldn't be making the car payments that I'm making if I didn't love it. But I feel like people, when you bring up phantom braking, they're like, oh, don't talk about that. Or like,
Right.
that's negative. Well, no, I think, what's going on?
That is the problem with Tesla is that the good and bad of it is that because he's he's innovating so fast that unlike other car companies like Ford or GM, which would wait until everyone was happy with this product before they roll it out, Tesla's going to
Yeah.
roll it out as soon as Elon says, I'm happy
Right.
with it. And he's kind of the deciding factor. And so I don't think he understands that he's probably fine. Like he's probably happy with it or something. But like, I get you. When that happens, you're just like, I think Jesse has a very visceral reaction to it. I think he's usually like, screw this.
Yeah.
I'm not using this today.
Yeah.
No, and I've found myself not using Autopilot unless the conditions are to what I think are perfect. And usually
Right.
it's not even like the weather. It's more to do with the other cars on the road
Right.
and, how far I'm going. Because, I don't mind being in control if I'm not driving for hours and hours and hours.
Right.
On a long road trip, I will almost always use Autopilot just because it's better than sitting in the car, for 4 hours trying to left, right, brake,
Right.
accelerate.
Right.
Like that's a lot of thinking. And we found that on our road trip way back in 2016, which is why we're so excited about Autopilot. Is like we had one day where we traveled 850 miles through Montana. It was beautiful, but I wasn't driving.
Yeah.
So we got to I've done road trips before in a gas car, and you get to that thing, and you get to the
Yeah.
hotel, and you just kind of drag your
Right.
soul into that hotel room and fall asleep. And we were fine at the end of the
Right.
day. We were just sitting around. It's like we were sitting on the couch for 8 hours, 10 hours
Right.
of flying through Montana.
However, I feel like what I've learned, and I kind of knew this about myself, but I'm always like in a rush, kind of on the go. And one of the unfortunate things is when you stop to charge, you lose that momentum, right? So you're sometimes you can get in the zone, right? I can drive 4 or 5 hours straight with a gas car, but then you have to stop and charge, and maybe you're sitting there for 40 minutes and you're kind of sleepy and it's hot outside, and so like it's interesting. It's an adjustment.
Right. And it does depend how often you're road tripping and what that kind of road trip is.
Yeah.
It sounds like your road trips are mainly to get somewhere, whereas for a lot of people, they're more to like...
leisurely.
Leisurely,
Right.
So, that's a good point.
Yeah. I feel like my too long didn't read version is that I love it around the city on road trips, especially if like I need to be there by a certain time. I'm on a time crunch. Not my favorite.
The other
yet.
interesting thing that you brought up is you're starting in the center of the country. We're on a coast. On the coast, if you look at the map, there's just tons of superchargers, right? Because the population is pretty much on the coast. And so in terms of being able to do what you wanted to do, which is like, hey, I don't want to really stop at 40%.
Yeah.
We have that option pretty much because there's so many more superchargers.
You can go 5 miles. There's another one. You can go 10 miles. There's another one.
Right. Whereas in Texas, it's not, they're clustered around cities, but you're right. Once you hit the open road.
We're especially in like New Mexico, Arizona, it's a little bit dicey. But
Right.
overall, I've really enjoyed it. And I think I especially like it because I got a custom wrap. So
Nice.
it's a very pretty car. But so that's a little bit about my road trip. You're telling me that you're also expanding like your channels. So how do you keep up with all these channels, projects, news updates? I can't even keep up with the news updates myself in the space scene. It's too much.
I'm not really a big fan of up-to-the-minute news, to be honest. I feel like that is one of the problems we have in the society is we think that the speed with which you get the news is the most important thing, and it's not, in my opinion. It's actually getting the whole story, getting the concept, getting how it relates. So that's why I like our weekly news show. We're not the latest place to get the news, but I feel like we've actually had a time to actually try and put it in perspective with how it fits.
Right.
And so I feel like we get that from a lot of people. They're like, hey, did you know this? I'm like, nope, because
Yeah.
I don't follow it every second. Because when you do follow it every second, you tend to think that that thing is the most important thing. And a lot of times once you've had a day or two to think about it, you're like, that's not that important. But in the moment, it seems like the most important.
And I mean, we've been, I would say, fortunate in that as we've progressed, not only have, I hope we got better, but also the volume of news about EVs has just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So whereas normally in a week, we'd be happy with 10 stories of like, these are good 10 stories. And now we're throwing out, we're just like, that's stupid. No, we're not going to cover that. Like, they announced that they're going to begin to fund a thing to start to produce EVs. No, we're not going to cover that until they start producing them.
Right.
It's like, they're building the factory. Great. Where's the cars? Now we're able to throw out news. Whereas before, I remember in like some of our early, episode
we were desperate
20s.
for news.
Yeah, it was just like,
bet.
BMW says they're going to make a car. Here's the
30 and
concept
20 years from
picture.
now, right.
Oh, wow. I wonder what that will be like. Now we're just like, you have a concept? Oh, cool.
Well, I mean, like Tesla's Project Highland, which is going to be the new
Yes.
refresh, like everyone wants to talk about it, and I would too, except that it's all rumors right now. Like,
Right.
as soon as we get some hard information,
Right.
we'll report on it.
We'll
But-
report on, pictures of what looks to be a Model 3 that someone, tore the tarp off. But other than that, it's like, report out of China. It's like, give me a break.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So now we're, just the amount of news that we actually have to throw some of it away. And that kind of gives us the time to, because we are actually sifting through all of it, we kind of get to see everything. And because we've been doing it every week, we get to, I've taken 1 or 2 weeks off where Zac has done the news, and I come back that second week and I'm just like, what has happened?
Yeah.
I'm behind. I'm only a week behind, but I'm like, oh my gosh, like how do I catch up? And it's astounding how much like you just have to be on top of it.
I wanted to ask you, though, in the space, because we do cover SpaceX a little bit peripherally. I mean, it's obviously super interesting to us. But with space, I feel like most of the world doesn't know anything about it. Like, every time I talk to people, even Tesla people in our bubble, and I'll say something about Starship, and I'll say, hey, intercontinental Starship. And they'll be like, what?
Right.
And it's like,
right.
yeah. Why is that?
Well, first of all, that's kind of part of my mission with the channel is to kind of let people know what's going on and break it down in a way that's easy for them to understand, but also like generate excitement around this. And I talked to a lot of people that were more in the Apollo era, and they feel like there's, been this big lapse of excitement and just participation in the space industry, and that their generation kind of failed. So can we usher in with this new like sexy SpaceX reusable rockets? I mean, Starship is sexy, Cybertruck is sexy, right? So like, but there's so much more going on than just SpaceX. There's so many new startups, but SpaceX is a major reason why we have that. So to answer your question, why aren't more people excited about it? I mean, if you looked after the Starship launch, April 20th, there were a lot of headlines and there was a lot of attention. Unfortunately, a lot of it was kind of skewed headlines of, that was a fail, catastrophic explosion. Well, no, you don't quite understand. And then I did see a lot of retractions, which was also interesting as a journalist to see, okay, people are changing the headlines 24 hours later. But why people don't know, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe it's just not as interesting as TikTok and doom scrolling. I don't know. Yeah. But I feel like, part of what I'm trying to do, because interesting too, I'm sure you guys look at your demographics and your analytics, and like most of my audience is 55 and older. Mm-hmm. And, 93% male. Yep. So how can I bring in younger and then also women? Well, I'm trying, but so like, right. So, I'm not sure why, but I think, once we start actually going to Mars, and I think there's something so different about sending a rover to Mars versus like, I don't know, sending a crew or even going back to the moon, right? This is like really exciting stuff, but this takes time. So I think you're going to see more excitement as we get closer to like crazy shit, basically, but it just takes time. But I think more people are catching on. I feel like I see, there's a pretty good cult following for SpaceX.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And definitely. I don't find it for Blue Origin. I don't find it for the other guys. Honestly, I'll try to cover and I'll try to branch out, and that video kind of bombs. Right. And so it's like I'm not trying to give up completely, but I have to like make money on my videos, and people just really have an interest, and I'm sure you see it too. Yep. With Tesla versus the other guys.
Oh, I know.
Right?
It's brutal. I mean, when we got the Ford F-150 Lightning, we got the Rivian, we thought, we're going to make so much great content, people are going to love this, and nobody cares. I think it's the bigger mission. I think that, I was lucky enough to interview RJ Scaringe, and I asked him, why are you doing this company? And I was ready for, we have to save the planet, or we have to, and he said, I always wanted to start a car company. And I was like, okay, really? That's your answer? You're making, the only electric pickup truck at the time, and your answer is you always wanted to start a car company?
Well, you did it.
You could have, congratulations. But like, and it was just like the mission wasn't there. Like Elon has this crazy perspective where he's like, hey, we need to make humans multiplanetary. And it's like, you have to really think about that one. And people don't. They're just like, why?
Right.
I live here. Well, right. I'm not going to live anywhere else. And it's like, okay, but like, what if an asteroid comes? And they're like, it won't.
Yeah.
Okay, what if there's a nuclear war? I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't. It's like, that doesn't do us any good.
Yeah.
That's not, your excuses aren't going to save humanity. Whereas having a base on Mars or a city on Mars or multiple cities and a civilization on Mars, that could save humanity. That's huge.
Right.
And it's like, it's just an amazing thing that Elon has this perspective, has this grand mission, which you can just keep as you learn more about him and as you learn more about the stuff that he's interested in and why he's doing the things he does. You're like, oh, so this is all to get us to Mars,
right?
And then to the stars.
Right.
You're like, oh, that's like Carl Sagan shit. You're like, oh, that's like very, very, very inspiring. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it works, because he doesn't just stop at a certain point and go like, I have started a successful car company.
Right.
Do you know how happy he would be if his brain was replaced with RJ Scaringe? He'd be like, I've done it.
Yeah.
Yay.
Right. No.
I can go to sleep. I can retire on my yacht. You know?
That's why the criticism of Elon sometimes it's like he's not resting on his laurels. And if you also think about the first mover advantage of like look back in 2008, Tesla and SpaceX both really on the rocks. Just and then now electric cars are sexy.
Mm-hmm.
Legacy automakers are having to change things to keep up. You have all these new space startups because before the idea of a private space company getting into orbit was absurd. It's a pipe dream. And so
or dystopian even.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no.
Right.
Yeah.
Then there'll be bad people in space.
Right.
And the Russians will pay them and
Right.
and now it's the opposite.
Right.
We literally have satellites communicating with, Ukrainian
Right.
Resistance.
But back to the point of getting more people involved, the Inspiration 4 mission, which I thought was going to be just so huge. I'm glad there's a Netflix show about it, and I'm glad, it's so great that it was successful and it's awesome. But I feel like every time I've asked people about it, they're like, the what mission?
Yeah.
And it's like, why wasn't this like the #1 news story of the year? And instead I feel like it's just been completely, not even forgotten. I don't think people knew about it at the time.
I think it was during the actual mission part, maybe kept a little too private. Maybe. I don't know.
I just feel like the mass media didn't really want to tell the story.
It's the wrong story.
Yeah.
It's
Why
like,
is it the wrong story?
billionaire gets to go to
But
space.
some non-billionaires got
I
to
know.
go too.
No, I
Yeah.
know. But it's just like,
Just everyday people got to go.
Yeah.
I know.
That was so inspiring for me. It's like, wow, there's a chance that I might get to do that.
I wept
Right.
during every episode
I know.
of that show. Like
Right.
I was just like,
It's
my
crazy.
God, like the tears were just so. I'm tearing up right now. I'm just like, oh, what an emotional show. And it was just like everyone was
Yeah.
just like, huh,
Right.
the what?
Right. So you can make like a slam dunk documentary version,
Yeah.
and not everyone's going to see it.
Yeah,
But it's almost like they don't want to see it.
Well,
I know.
perhaps that too.
I'm just so afraid that we're gonna land back on the moon and everyone's gonna be like, oh yeah,
Or
whatever.
it's fake. Or it's still
I know.
fake.
Oh my God.
I
But I'm worried about the people who don't even think that it's fake are just going to be like, oh, great.
Yeah, whatever.
Or that they think
Whatever.
it's somehow easy because we've done it before. Like,
Right.
it's still a very
It's the
hard
reason
thing.
it's been over
anything to
50
do.
years.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It was impossible that we did it then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we lost interest in 1974 in space. I
Yeah.
mean, we had just decades and decades of space shuttle is fine. I don't want to put it down, but like it was a pretty lame next step. It's just that that's what Nixon chose. But I feel like we could have chosen a different path, had a bigger rocket,
Yeah.
gotten further out, and instead maybe that's what killed it. It was like we were just in low Earth orbit for so long that people thought, well, if this is space, then I'm kind of bored with it.
Right.
I don't know.
Could be.
I always feel like it kind of comes back to culture. I always feel like Hollywood will just kind of glom onto an idea. And the idea of like a brave astronaut did kind of die with the Apollo program. And I mean, obviously, it's been talked about to death of, the multiple shuttle disasters where
Yeah.
you have like
Yeah.
Christy McAuliffe. Am I saying that right? Who died, and you're just like, everyone's just like, oh, space is dangerous. It's scary. And what's the point? Like, what were they even going to do if they were on the space station? And you're like, yeah, you're not getting it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, do we really, it's the planting of the flag.
Yeah.
Really? That's what's going to get us to all be excited about it.
Right.
Was it just the space race? Like, and now that we
Right.
don't have a real race?
Right.
Like,
So, I mean,
Oh, there's a race.
right.
there is.
China.
Yeah,
Right.
I know.
China.
I just think most people don't even know that.
Right.
Right.
Like,
So I'm actually, my good friend Jonathan McDowell, who's a very well-known astronomer, lives here as well. And he's like, that is the most underreported story of the space industry right now. The space reporters, are just really not, reporting enough about this, that China, when you think of China space, you probably think of a government-regulated space industry only. That would have been true 10 years ago. Now they have a ton of commercial space, not a lot of regulations with their commercial space sector, which is kind of dangerous for us with, re-entries and stuff, uncontrolled re-entries, terrifying. But, so yeah, there is a space race. And so then you have that late mover, right, advantage. So yeah, it's very interesting. So there's a ton. I mean, I kind of dabble in EV stuff. I'm not nearly like you guys. I do a little bit of things, but like there's a lot going on with both the EV and the space industry, and it's very interesting.
I see a lot of similarities in the sense that you've got these big, ULAs, right, which are kind of the equivalent of, say, fossil fuels or big auto, and they have a lot of power, right? And so.
But they don't move fast enough.
But they don't move fast.
I mean, in China, they're selling a heck of a lot more EVs than us, mainly because a lot of the EVs that they're selling, if you get into a car accident, you will die. It's true of many of the cars that they sell there, because they don't. Safety is not necessarily the priority, or they're just very, very small, and we don't really like that kind of car here. Yeah. But no, it's just interesting to see, because in China it always flits back and forth between like the Model Y, the Model 3, and I forget what it's called, the Wuling G3 or whatever.
$4,000.
It's a $4,000 glorified golf cart, and it's like cool that you can move people around for so little money, and it's fairly efficient because it's teensy weensy. But at the same time, you're like, I don't want to necessarily be driving something that can only go 40 miles an hour. And if I get into a car accident, I'm probably going to regret it. But
I feel like Elon needs a Robert Downey Jr. spokesperson who just makes these points really clear, kind of dumbs them down. On the energy side, it's like freedom energy. Like solar is freedom energy. Right. And SpaceX is an American company getting to space. And like just simple things like that where Americans be like, of course, great, awesome.
Rah, 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 USA, USA. Right. I mean, I hate to have to lower it to the lowest common denominator, though. Yeah. There's so much interesting stuff to talk about with Starship. Right. And it's like, I want everyone to like play Kerbal Space Program and be like literate on space stuff. It's not that hard. Like it was hard to learn because you're like, I have to go up and sideways. What? Yeah. Why? Space is up there. Right. But then you're like, oh, I'm throwing myself at the ground and missing. Like, weird. Right. And then I have to go faster to go up and slower to go down, and depending, it's not going to be here, it's going to be on the other side of the planet. It's like, all of that stuff is it's like once you don't know about it and you're like orbital, what's the altitude? Yeah. Why can't they just fly to the other space?
Hard.
It's really hard. But it's hard to think about unless you have some literacy in it. And it's like that's tough to be like, okay, so I know you know how to drive a car. Take everything you know about driving a car, throw it out the airlock. Here's space, baby. Right. There's no gravity, but there is gravity. It's microgravity. It's like all these concepts that are just like, never experienced it. You throw something in the air, it comes back down, and
and I feel like that's good if people want to learn and like get into the weeds a little more. But I think anyone can be excited by watching a Starship launch. You don't have to be a space nerd. You don't have to be literate in the lingo to just say, wow, that is a big ass rocket. Yeah. And, it's doing somersaults in the air. That doesn't seem according to plan. But like, that's kind of my goal, is that I'm getting in on this niche when it's not blown up yet. Maybe I shouldn't say those things, right?
You can.
But,
they haven't put people on them yet.
Yeah. 5 years from now, when more people they'll say, oh, that alien space girl, I'm looking at her channel. She was there for the first launch. She has a footprint here. She's probably credible. So, it's okay if people don't all know yet. But I think as time goes on, especially when we get into a better launch cadence, because, it's just too slow. I mean, the first launch was delayed by almost 2 years, and now we're dealing with some hang-ups, with the regulatory approval. So,
but going to Falcon 9, which just had, I think it's like 250th launch or whatever.
Amazing, by the way.
That has become so rote, so ubiquitous that I feel like I thought like, oh, well, as soon as they can prove this after 100 launches, people get excited, right? But I still ask people today, and they're like,
no, it's boring. Well, it's like,
but not even boring. I think most people, like I say, reland rockets, and they go, reland what? Right. Yeah. It's like, no, they're relanding them. Well, and they go, they do?
Yeah. The problem that I have is now I'm bored. Yeah. I'll get a notification for YouTube, and it's like, Falcon 9 launch. And I'm like...
Right. Scene one, seen them all.
Scene one. It's like, I don't go to the airport and like, woo, they landed! man, it's like 275. Woohoo! I can't believe it. Like, we're just like, yep, the next one comes right in.
Right.
We don't even blink.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you look up in the sky, you see 14 airplanes
Yep.
if you count them,
Yep.
which you don't because it's not that exciting.
Yeah.
If it was, 1946,
Right.
maybe it'd be, or probably not even 46. You'd probably have to go back to the 30s.
Right.
And then it would be like, oh my gosh, I saw an airplane today. If you said that to someone now,
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe it. I saw
Right.
an airplane today.
Right. Yeah.
It's
What,
like,
what era are you from?
But now we have travel vloggers.
Yeah.
They're not taking trains to get where they're going.
Yeah.
They're flying there.
Right.
It's going to be the exact same thing with intercontinental flights.
Right.
It's going to be like, I had dinner
In
forever.
Shanghai. Right.
Point to point.
I had dinner
Point to point.
in...
I know there'll be
I watched the
vloggers who
sunset.
just have dinner all day.
I watched the sunset, then I watched the sunset, then I watched the sunset. I spent one whole day, which lasted 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about, a lot of people don't know what's going on. And I think that's a good segue into now Tesla is playing with a little bit of advertising,
Yeah.
The
kind of.
tiniest amount.
Yeah. So, at the recent shareholder meeting, I was there in person. Meet Kevin asked a question. Hey, Elon, a lot of people don't know about, the crazy things that Tesla's doing and what an amazing product this is. So can you do some advertising? And to that, he said, yes. I haven't seen too much of it myself. In fact, I feel like me talking about the referral program benefits has been, a little bit more beneficial to Tesla than whatever I don't know.
Right.
I think I've actually sold 3 Teslas, so
Good for you.
call me a
That's awesome.
salesperson.
Nice.
That referral program, by the way, I will say, I'm a new Tesla owner, so I'm new to all this, is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Pretty
That's
awesome.
what launched them. I mean, that's why we're getting so many Roadsters. Is because
Right.
we sold a lot. Like, once you set up a good referral program, you don't need advertising.
Right, right.
Because you are a great salesperson
Right,
for a brand that
right.
you like.
How long was that program suspended? Because I know they recently
time.
brought it back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it was
years.
a while.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, they didn't need it. I mean,
Right.
they're keeping up their production with demand, so they didn't really need it. I think now that their production's going to get bigger, they needed more demand.
And now
I see.
they're no longer just on the early adopters. We're getting much more into the mainstream buyer.
Right.
Right.
There's like kind of 8 slices to the pie of adoption, right? So you have your early adopter, right, who waits in line for the new iPhone, right? And doesn't matter what it looks like, I'm going to get it kind of thing. And then you got your second adopter, your third, and so forth. And I think Tesla's probably right now, you would argue, in their third or fourth stage, where it's
Right.
getting to people who, if you think back to things like, I don't know, high-def television, like, I don't know where you were on that adoption curve, but at some point, some people were early and they get the most expensive brand new television.
Right.
But then a lot of us waited till they got cheaper, and that's kind of where I feel like we're at.
With Tesla. Legacy automakers. I was reading an interview from you guys back in 2021, and you were saying that, Ford and GM, they weren't really thinking about EVs. Have they even test driven these cars? And now, oh boy, how much has changed with the recent announcements about the network.
They test drove their cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. What's CEO of Ford?
Jim Farley.
I can't believe that Jim Farley actually said this out loud, but he's like, I went for a test drive with my kids.
A road trip.
A road trip, and they said, Dad, why can't we charge at the Tesla Supercharger? And the next week, we have the NACS announcement,
Right.
apparently.
That's what
Wow.
Or at least that's what spurred it on. It's like, and we heard the same thing with, oh my God, way back in the day with, I think it was either Volkswagen or Daimler, where the guy actually went for a holiday,
Right.
And driving over the Alps was kind of weird. We should have more chargers there. And you're like, right.
Yeah.
You drive them, and you figure out what you need to change.
Right.
And I feel like Mary Barra still hasn't taken one.
I don't
for
think she's taken
an
it out of
extended,
Detroit. I doubt
think
it.
highly
doubt it.
She keeps it in Detroit, and that's probably it. But no, I mean, it's just like, man, have they just not? They definitely haven't driven Teslas.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess you're just so loyal to your brand that you don't see what other brands are doing. I don't know.
Are you worried about congestion at the Tesla superchargers now?
Not really. I know there are some spots. I mean, we shouldn't talk about California because you guys have so many out there that
Yeah.
it can get crushed. But I feel like, we do the Tesla Time supercharger reviews every week, and there's just so many being built in California. I think we're up to 375. As long as they can keep up that way. I know that people are getting worried that once some of these other brands can start using their chargers,
Right.
The good
Fair.
news is, I think we kind of forget this, is that Tesla can control the pricing. I think up until now, they really haven't done that much because they don't really want to or need to. But I think they can do congestion pricing.
Well, and they have done price adjustments, usually to the benefit of the owner. They
Right.
say, hey, like during Thanksgiving and other very drive heavy times, they will say, hey, if you charge off peak, you'll get a cheaper rate, and that's to
Right.
keep the congestion down as well. During times when like an absurd number of Tesla owners
Right.
are driving to grandma's house, but I think they can also crank the lever in the other direction and say, if you're charging on peak, it's going to be more expensive in that.
Right.
And if you're driving a Ford, it's more than if you're driving a this or
Right.
that.
Right. Right.
But also, they're making them like crazy nuts. We used to, at the end of our show, we would always do, the new Superchargers of whatever they were making that week. We'd have some weeks where, there were 3,
Right.
there were 5. Now,
It's like 2 or 3 pages.
It's 2 or 3 pages of probably around 20
Right.
a week.
How popular do you think that hosts a supercharger that for businesses?
The destination chargers.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not understood well enough. I mean, I think some businesses get it, but I think most just still don't get it. If you're a hotel, a restaurant, any place you have to be for more than 20 minutes, you should have charging.
Right.
Because you're going to bring in new customers. But I've talked to developers at grocery stores, and I've said, hey, you going to put in charging? And they're like, there's not enough cars yet. And it's like, well, there are some, though. You would get loyal customers if you did. Like, Jesse used to go to a specific grocery store because they had a charger that his Leaf could charge at.
Right. Like way out of the way, they had a Chatamo stall. It would take me 35 minutes to charge up. I would always go in, grab something to eat. I was going to
Yeah.
be there for a little while. And that was with my Nissan Leaf. Whatever. There aren't that many Nissan Leafs compared to Teslas now. I think that the problem is it's this this variability in pricing when it comes to charging infrastructure, because it's all dependent on how much power you can draw from your existing stuff. For example, I worked at an engineering company, and my CEO drove a Tesla. He had a Roadster. He said that it was Elon Musk's ex-wife's Roadster. I was like, okay, I'll take his word for it. And then he bought a Model 3. And so I would always kind of bug him and be like, hey, we should have charging here. Lots of people are interested in getting a Tesla. It would be a great perk to have charging at work. And, okay, great. Yeah, go talk to operations. Let's talk to operations. So I talked to operations, and I was going through the process. I was trying to figure out, tax incentives and everything like that. So talked to my operations manager. I said, we could fit 6 chargers right here. It'll be great. And he's like, cool. How much power do we need? And I told him, and he went, nope. And I went, what do you mean? He's like, I would have to call the power company. They would have to install a brand new panel. They'd have to run a whole thing. It would cost $10,000 at least, I think it was more like 30, because we're already drawing a crap ton of power in this engineering building of running machines, stuff like that. And so it was just too expensive for them to even think about. They were like, why would we need that? And I mean, in some places it's super, super cheap because they have the power available on some circuit somewhere that some electrician installed. It's all about we have to dig something up. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the copper or the aluminum for the wiring. It's not necessarily the breakers or the boxes or anything. It's just time and digging stuff up.
Well, and I think you just hit the nail on the head. There's got to be somebody at that place who has the thought to do it and sticks with it through the process, and hopefully doesn't get too many no's along the way.
Right.
So at that hotel, there has to be someone there who actually starts the ball rolling.
And the funny thing was, there were a couple of charging stations around this, charge points, other chargers, and at them was parked an old Model S at every single one of them every day, because it was the CEO of that company, and they said, I want a charger at my job. And nobody said no to them. They just said, yes, sir, we will get that charger for you, sir. That's how it worked, right?
Wow.
That's where the chargers were. And so, when that CEO went home at 5 o'clock, I could go park my car there and charge up my Leaf, and then I could make it into Boston. But the rest of the time, it was like there was nothing around.
Well, for those superchargers, how much is one stall for a business, and how much could the business be making if they invested in that?
So Tesla has a program, and you can go to their website if you're interested as a business and fill out the form, and they'll get back to you, hopefully. So it's the destination charger page. And basically, I think in a lot of cases, they will give you the charger for free or at a discount, and sometimes they'll even pay for some of the installation, depending on whether they think it's going to help the network. Because it does help Tesla if you have other places to charge. And you can charge up to 80 amps at some of those places, which is pretty fast.
But then it all comes down to devil in the details and controlling who can charge when. Because I remember there's a big problem of like, well, what if just random people come and charge at our building? We don't want them here. They can't be here. And if they're taking pictures through the windows, then it's a security risk. We can't have that. And you're like, oh, okay, well, we can have a special key card thing, but Tesla doesn't have that. So you'd have to go, and then all of a sudden you're back to, well, we can't do it.
But I mean, going back to your trip, if you were able to stop at a restaurant or something that had a destination charger, you might have chosen that restaurant or that hotel for that
100%.
reason.
Well, a lot of the chargers were like, a Family Dollar, like way across the street was the closest thing, and they didn't have a bathroom, so I had to walk to a gas station, and it was bad because it's so hot outside. Yeah. So it was like, man, like I wish that at least the amenities were better. It's kind of slim pickings.
Well, and with Tesla, because they own they don't own the Supercharger. They own the Superchargers, but they are leasing the space, and so it's probably the wrong incentive structure for a lot of these deals that they have to make, where they say, okay, in this general geographic area, we want to put a charger because it's near to highways or, it's along some route. And then they have to make a decision of where they're going to pick. And so they're going to have to talk to multiple developers and say, hey, your plaza seems nice. Do you want a charger? And if those developers don't get it, then they're going to be like, you could stick it in the back. And you've been to some Superchargers, I'm sure, where you got stuck in the back.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find.
And you're like, and then you go to other ones, and you're right in the middle of town.
Right.
You feel like $1 million because you're like, I'm right next to all the great shops. And
I can go to Target.
Yeah, you're like, great, I'm going to have a great time. But yeah, it's so funny how hit or miss Tesla is.
And that's why we like to have them rated, just because there are some great ones.
Yeah, no, that's really smart. Have you had many? I've been meaning to send you a review of the Buc-ee's in Texas Superchargers. Have you had many of those?
No.
We haven't had any Buc-ee's yet.
I think I'm going to send you some Buc-ee's because I have a Buc-ee's bathing suit and shorts with the Buc-ee's beaver. I'm like the Buc-ee's. It's really embarrassing. Okay, so let's talk about the other kind of some future plans. And again, Elon time is always delayed, but we're waiting on Semi for you guys. We're waiting on Cybertruck. So what are your plans with Semi?
So we're number 65, I think, on the list for Semi, but I totally get it. We're probably, I'm sure Pepsi and Walmart and Budweiser are going to get theirs first because I think they really need to get them out to the fleets first. So I understand Tesla, but...
You're still waiting because that delivery was in November, that first little,
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's because they have to give it to fleets first. There's no real charging infrastructure yet. So if we did get it...
If we got the truck... Well, okay, it has a 500 kilowatt hour battery, more 800 kilowatt hour battery. Do you know how long? Like, it takes a long time to charge up the Ford F-150 Lightning on a 110 regular wall outlet.
The Mega Charger is 750 kilowatts. So I mean, we would be charging forever at a supercharger.
Right.
Wow.
We've seen semis parked at a supercharger, but what they do is they take they plug in, and then it all comes to one.
Right.
And they're drawing all that power into the truck, and it's like, we can't do that.
No.
Yeah.
They don't want us doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously, if they talk to Pepsi, they say, here's where you charge.
Right.
And where would you like us to build a charger?
But I mean,
Right.
one of the benefits that we would have for Tesla is that we want to get butts in seats for truck drivers. So we want to get this truck out there, and we want to let other truck drivers just drive it, like take it for a leg and
like
tell us
that.
what, because we've heard from Pepsi recently in this video that came out last week that a lot of the Pepsi drivers who were used to diesel trucks, they would get into the Tesla Semi and they were like, oh, in half an hour I knew how to drive it. Like it's like a Tesla, right? It has a screen and it's easy. And that's, I think, one thing we need to get out there. It's like it's super comfortable, super easy.
I want to shadow a Tesla Semi driver for a day so badly.
Yeah.
Do you know anyone?
Well, I mean, if you go, I think it's Modesto is the Pepsi, like probably just hang outside their lot when they leave. There's 4 of them that leave every day.
Can't be that easy.
I mean, why not? It says Pepsi on the side.
I'm sure they don't want to talk to you, but yeah,
Right,
I know.
right. To arrange a camera interview.
Right. Yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
when you guys get yours, I
Definitely.
would love to, like, you
Sure.
know,
Of course.
shadow and
course.
and I was going to ask you because I know Sandy Monroe wants to get one to tear it down,
Mm-hmm.
but you guys kind of want to get the word out, and I'm guessing you're not starting a trucking company, or are you?
Yeah, actually we are.
Sure, why not?
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because we know how much money. I mean, the big factor. So most trucking today is independent. Most truck drivers, you think of these big fleets, but most of them are actually individuals.
Right.
And what's their number one expense? The maintenance and the fuel for their truck.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that is why it's so hard to keep one of those profitable, because any little thing that goes wrong, your fuel prices go up.
Right.
You know, that's your profit.
Right.
Electric.
Right. Or the truck is sitting on the side of the road with the load in the back that
Right.
was supposed to be delivered 6 hours
Right.
ago.
Right.
And they don't, it's not a warehouse that's a, what's it called when you, just in time manufacturing
Right.
plant, and they had to shut down all the lines.
Right.
It's like, that's expensive, even if it's not expensive for the trucking company.
Right.
So it's like, all of these things are going to make a big difference in terms of, like, you might want to pay a premium to a trucking company that's going to get it there to you on
Yeah.
time.
And that's the thing. Once we get the truck, we want to show truck drivers all the realities. It's not just the fun, hey, look, we can pull things. I want to show them, like, okay, dollars and cents. How does this compare to your truck?
Right.
Right.
Because I think that's what they care about.
Well, and it's also the charging component. I mean, right now, if you're a commercial truck driver, you have to stop at certain times and basically rest because they don't want exhausted truck drivers driving around.
Right.
So,
That works perfectly
perfect.
for charging.
Yeah.
You charge during that time. So seeing how, how does that line up, their mandated schedule, how does that line up with the charging infrastructure? Like Tesla's just announced they're going to put in 9 chargers from, Northern California all the way down to Texas, Laredo, Texas. And it's like, well, that's cool. Who are those for? Does Zac and Jesse get to try them? Like, I would love to try that.
Right.
But yeah, how will that kind of line up with that and all sorts of stuff like that? I just think that just like with when we did our road trip in Sparky and everyone thought that was going to be impossible for us, it's like with the same thing with the semi-trucks. I've been hearing about so many people who are like, well, it's not possible.
I mean, Bill Gates said it's not possible, right? And
Right.
now we're proving him wrong. It's
Right.
like, you just have to show that it can be done. And then I think brains go, oh.
Yeah.
And how many famous people said that, the Model S or the Model X wouldn't be successful, or that Tesla itself or just electric cars in general could never happen because of X or because of Y? They would come up with all these stupid, boneheaded reasons that look stupid and boneheaded today, but sounded plausible back
Well, and to get
when
back
they
to
said it.
space, how many people said you couldn't reland a rocket?
Right.
I mean, none of us had ever seen it happen, so of course it can't happen.
Right.
Science fiction.
Right.
And curious about the Tesla Semi too. I thought that they were gonna announce, a better price spec at the delivery. Do you have any more insight on that?
No, I mean,
Even as someone who's ordered, wow.
yeah, because I think I think probably behind the scenes they're talking to fleets quietly
Yeah.
about that because they've got to make sure it works for fleets.
You're a fleet. See, I'm a fleet too.
No, but we're not.
Yeah.
This is one of Tesla's biggest weaknesses, I think, is their public
Communication.
communication.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Okay.
basically Elon's X.
But of
feed,
course, they
you know.
don't
I don't blame them. I
they
mean,
don't really want to give us the
No.
truck first.
Right.
Right.
They
right.
they're gonna want to give it to Walmart and Amazon and all the big players because to install a mega charger is $13 million
Right.
per location. So do Zac and Jesse have that kind of money to throw around? No, we can't really make our hub yet. We're gonna have to kind of wait for Tesla to make the mega charger network, just like
We
their
could make
Supercharger network.
a solar semi-port, though.
Yeah, and then park it for a month while it charges up. Like, it's a lot of juice.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I was excited to move to Texas, not only because SpaceX is down south, but I'm in the Tesla headquarters city of Austin. And so I hear that maybe Cybertruck delivery event will be around September 1st-ish. What do y'all think? Those are from my inside sources.
It seems kind of likely because the fact that we just saw that Cybertruck outside of Gigafactory, it had the stickers on it, looked like it came off the line. Maybe I'm just letting myself get too excited, but I feel like they're actually maybe this time going to stick to a realistic timeline. So
Right.
that would be great, but I'm not letting myself get too carried away.
Okay. When do you think that because I'm guessing there'll be an event.
Yeah, he said there'll be an event, so
When do you think they'll start?
I mean, I thought end of September, but
Yeah.
then more recently at the last earnings call, I felt like he was pushing it back a month or two. So I wouldn't be
Okay.
surprised if it was October, November, but I don't know. I feel like he wants to give, like he did with Model 3, I feel like he wants to give a bunch to, not give, but sell to his employees first.
Right.
So I feel like there'll be like 50 or 100, and I just can't wait to see 100 of them.
Yeah.
Like, that would be awesome.
Well, I've been entering that raffle with my
Nice.
with my referral credits. So have you guys been?
No, I got that order we're probably like number 20 on the list because I signed up within seconds. So
You're 20?
Yeah. Yeah, so we covered the event, and when we were there, I had one phone above my head live streaming, and I was like, and
my
the
gosh.
Wi-Fi crashed for a second, and I finally got on. So then we looked on the Cybertruck Owners Club, and we think, I mean, obviously, I think we're going to get bumped behind, Jason Calacanis and other people, but
Yeah.
but still, if I'm in the top, I don't know, 500 or something, that'd be great.
Okay, this is
Because
like.
we will be one of the first to shoot it with a gun. So.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I want to be there for that. So this is also quite off topic, but we're obviously content creators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think about X?
Twitter/X. I love it. I think that we don't get it yet. I think most people don't understand that it was Twitter. It was this thing that I didn't like very much, to be honest.
Right.
Because we do tweets of the week every week, or X of the week, or posts of the week, we cover them every week. And I feel like the mass media pulls out of context a tweet here, a tweet there, right? And then, Elon's crazy.
Yeah.
When you follow him, just like if you follow anyone, you get the context of where their head's at. I feel like with Elon, it's important to know where his head's at. Mm-hmm. And so what he's trying to do here is, I think, create an everything app.
Right.
Finance, open free speech, and micropayments, citizen journalism, and exactly. Right. I think that, as you know on YouTube, I think you'd agree, YouTube is just getting worse in terms of the hoops they make us jump through, the algorithm sucking.
Can we talk about the creator revenue? Elon says that he wants to, at first it was going to be for the first year, creators were going to get 100% of the revenue. Now it's, until you hit $100,000, which is crazy. YouTube takes like 50% or something. Like, why are we not all doubling down on X? Like that was just wild to me. And I do make, a little bit of money on the subscriptions. Again, it's still kind of evolving. Elon is one of my subscribers, so thank you.
Wow.
But
awesome.
It's crazy. But it's like, I feel like there's a lot of potential, and I do feel like there's a shift in like YouTube interest in just more people spending time on TikTok and X.
I totally agree.
Well, and we in the West have never seen an everything app.
Right.
In China,
Yes.
with the same app, you can text your friend. You can also pay for your food. You can
Right.
also call a cab.
WeChat?
Like basically, it's all through one app. And it's a little scary because it's all controlled by the Chinese government. So that's a little... That's a conversation in itself, but
I mean, that's the pushback a lot of people give, is like, I don't want Elon to have that power. And it's like, I hope there's many apps like that.
Sure.
You have your choice, but there's no one app to do that now.
But like,
Right.
don't you have that friend who you only communicate through one of the apps, and you have 7 because there's 7 different, is it WhatsApp? Right. Is it texting? Is it Facebook Messenger? Is it Instagram messaging?
Right.
How do you talk to that person? Oh, it's going to be one of them. And then they're going to send you a Facebook, whatever the hell thread. What do they call it? No.
Well, you forgot about Snapchat, okay?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or is it on Snapchat? So like, and then you're like, oh, great. I want to watch what is essentially a TikTok, but it's on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it doesn't integrate with the app that they sent it on. Oh my God, this is so stupid. You're just like, and this is just to watch a dumb video. Let alone when you want to, okay, how are we going to pay for dinner? Do you have Zelle? No, I don't have Zelle. Oh, do you have Venmo? I do have, no, I have Cash App. Right. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Really? We're forgetting
about micropayments. So, I mean, right now, if I want to pay 2 cents to get one of your, tweets or X's or posts, I can't, because 2 cents, I mean, everyone's going to lose money on that, right? But if he can pull off micropayments, then I can give you 2 cents, and Jesse can give you 2 cents, and it's 1,000 people can, and you can start to make a living as a citizen journalist at doing that.
And this is the kind of thing where we don't see this as normal people, because we're not like accepting payments from people. But like, you ever go into a store and they're like, $10 minimum to use the credit card. And you're like, why? Okay, I'll get the cookie, to just get it over the $10. Well, it's because of the transaction fees.
Right.
And so it's like they're paying a fee just to allow the money to move around.
Right.
And as you get to smaller and smaller amounts, it gets it's not worth it.
Right.
So why do you think you can't pay 2 cents for anything?
Right.
It's because it's not worth it unless it's a lemonade stand. It's not worth the infrastructure for it because we haven't set up micropayments.
I don't think most people watching right now who haven't really been on Twitter lately understand like Twitter Spaces.
Yeah.
To me, that's a game changer. I get it. It's not quite there yet. There's still
Has some glitches.
and some of them can be awful if everyone's talking at once and stuff. But when it's done well, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And I think in a recent post, someone said, and Elon agreed, that this could change the outcome of the next election, because we've already seen, Elon's already talked to, I think, 2 of the candidates. When you have a place where you can actually hear people in long form in real time, that's different than what we have now. Like,
Right.
we don't actually have that now. And then you can go off and just be talking about it. Like, this is going to change journalism. But we're still, a lot of us just thinking, oh, it's just Twitter. It's just 140 characters. And it's not.
No.
He's changing it so fast. It's like what he's doing with Tesla, where it's changing so fast you can't keep up.
Yes.
And he's
not done.
he's not done. He's not even close. And it's hard as a human because you're like, okay, this week you did what? Like,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to use it anymore.
Well, so many people are doubting it, and it's like, just wait in a year's time.
Right.
You guys are going to be addicted to X. But
Exactly.
one of the things that I love about Twitter Spaces, right, because, I'm on YouTube and I'm on Twitter or X, whatever, is that I love that you can have audience participation where I can hear my viewer's voice for the first time, right? Live streaming on YouTube, I know a lot of the commenters, they're familiar usernames and whatnot, but it's really kind of special to be able to say, hey, instead of me reading the question to Jonathan, why don't I unmute you and you go? And
It's town square.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and like
Yeah.
Zach and I have to pay Zoom some ridiculous amount of money just to have more than like 50 participants on a
Right.
Zoom call. And so we try and do that with our patrons.
Right.
Right. And so it's fun. We have to limit the number of people that we talk to
Right.
because otherwise once you get over 500, it's impossible.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, too
Yeah.
bad. What kind of company do you run that you have more than 500 employees? And it's like, a lot of them like that, but
Yeah.
okay, sure. So just the ability to do that, because we've live streamed before, and you're right, you're just like reading comments, and half the
Yeah.
comments are just like blah blah blah, and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, and somebody who makes a really nice point is just
Yeah.
whisked away. I think that has a big thing to do with it too, and it's just like, right, why, like, we have the internet. We have the capability to do all of this different stuff, and yet why has it only been these large companies that do one specific thing decently?
Right.
YouTube does video sharing decently. Twitch did live streaming decently until they decided not to pay anybody anymore, and then everybody left.
Right.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all the Twitch streamers, they decided, we're going to move on to all these other platforms. And
Right.
to a similar degree for a while, Twitter was, and sort of is, people are trying to, let's get away from Twitter. It's like, it's hard to. It's hard to leave
Yeah.
Facebook. It's hard to leave whatever it is that you've entrenched your life into. And that's kind of a weird and scary thing, too. And it's just nice that instead of Elon being just your normal Mark Zuckerberg, I'm going to make so much money and ride on my e-foil surfboard all the time. There's that picture of Zuckerberg riding his e-foil. He loves that thing. Instead of being just this kind of douchey bro, he's like, we're going to go to Mars. And
Yeah.
also,
I'm going to work till 3 a.m.
And I
Yeah.
care about freedom of speech. And you're like, you like have morals?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's kind of nice. Like, when was the last time you heard Google having any morals whatsoever? As opposed to just, the advertisers don't like it when you say COVID-19, so you can't say that during a COVID-19 pandemic when that's all anyone wants to talk about. That was weird. That was pretty
We had
weird.
to come up with new words.
We just leaned into it. We were like, okay, we'll just do the 1984 thing and call it double plus bad cold.
Right.
And then people were mad at us. They're like, why aren't you saying what it's called? And it's like, because we can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Censorship.
Right.
And why were they thinking about it? No, they went to their policies list and they said, well, we don't like it when people talk about mass tragedies, and we're going to call it a mass tragedy. So YouTube basically took down videos of people talking about COVID-19 right when it was happening.
Right.
Right in the scariest pocket of time. Like, how scary was that they were like, free speech? No, we have to think about our bottom line. Advertisers don't want to talk about this. What?
I call it the vid.
What's that?
The vid. COVID. The
Oh.
vid.
Oh, sure.
There's an abbreviation.
Yeah.
Now, YouTube, I foresee, for some reason, I have this gut feeling that, in 6 months to a year's time, my X will surpass my YouTube. And not just like in terms of followers or whatever, but like monetarily.
I agree.
Do you guys see that trend?
Yeah, I mean, we just saw our last month's. I mean, we have very steady. We are like consistent YouTubers, right?
Right.
And so you can't be like, well, that's because you guys did this that month.
Right.
Like, we're consistent. And we just saw a month where our revenue dropped like 40%.
Right.
And
Okay, so I'm not alone.
No, and
Okay.
and we're like, did we do something wrong,
Yeah,
YouTube?
it's rough.
And if that was our only revenue stream, if we didn't have our patrons and stuff, like, we would be scrambling.
Yeah.
And we knew that all along, so we didn't rely on it too much. But if you're a creator, I mean, I don't want people to feel sorry for us or anything. This is our business. But like, if you're a creator, you rely on that, that revenue. And when it has to be predictable, or else you can't do your job. And so for YouTube to be like, let's turn this knob a little bit and see what happens. It's like, yeah, we're all going to leave. And then, like you said with Twitter, Elon's over there going, hey, come on, I'll pay you really well. In fact, I'll take my income and put it in the pot. And I think a lot of people, getting back to your question about Twitter, are so mad at Elon if they're Tesla investors because they think, well, he's taking his eye off of Tesla. Elon needs a lot of things on his plate to be the guy he is. And I feel like he knows when he has extended himself too much. He's not going to work 3 a.m. at Twitter every night if he can't handle it.
Right.
I feel like that's actually spurs his brain on. It gives him more. So I'm just happy to see him happy. He seems really happy lately.
Well, and it's...
That's because he's got the endorphins
from
training.
45 pounds.
Yeah. I really do feel, though, that, like, all you have to do when you're like, why is Elon doing that, is you just kind of zoom out until you have the whole Earth in the thing, and then you zoom out a little bit more, and you go like, oh, right, he's trying to get to Mars, and he's like, and what is it? He's like, he has to worry about civilizations. He's on the civilizational level. Right. Most of the time, I'm like, what am I having for dinner tonight? And it's like, no, he's playing, Sid Meier's while I'm over here playing checkers, and it's like, oh, right. So like, freedom of speech is pretty important if we want to like bring good stuff to Mars, and if we want to, okay, and if everything that he does, it just is this constant continuation of just like, why is he doing this? Oh, it's because it's going to become necessary for civilization to continue.
In the 80s, we went through a period where everyone focused on little, just incremental things, right? Harvard Business School was all about just changing little things for the next quarter and getting your profits up 1%, right? Just little thinking. Elon came along and just said, like, screw all that. Look big. And it's worked.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I will admit I haven't watched Disruptive Investments. However, it sounds like I should, especially because I am a Tesla investor. Really believe in that. I'm holding. Nice. But tell me about why you think Tesla is probably still undervalued. If you think
you
that.
go first.
Oh, me. It's the two things that we didn't talk about this whole time.
Right.
Okay.
Robots.
Right.
Yes.
And autonomous driving.
Right.
Those two technologies are like just they're science fiction level disruptive. In terms of profit, like it's hard to have a conversation about it without also bringing up like slavery.
Right.
In terms of profit margin, which I don't like to do, and nobody does, right? You don't go like, what were the profit margins of a plantation? Oh, they were great. Why were they great? Oh, because you didn't pay people anything, and they were, when you have robots, it's the same thing, except you don't even have to feed them. They can plug into a solar panel.
They don't need sleep.
Right.
And we don't have to worry that we're treating humans poorly because these are robots, and so
unless they're sentient.
Right, which is a question.
It's possible we could get to
question.
AGI.
I'll keep my
Elon
mind
said
open
this
to
week
that.
that he thinks the cars are getting to AGI level. So yeah,
Right.
maybe we have to be nice to them.
So it's like, I don't know. But in terms of disruptive, oh my God. When you have a robot that can work in your factory. I mean, we have robots in factories. It's just that they're very, very specific. And
they're bolted to the floor.
And when there's a problem, you have to get the human to come fix it.
I think it's hard for us because there's so many technologies converging at once. Well, the last time this happened, we weren't alive. So it was, the automobile, when we had so many different things coming together, electricity
and the steam locomotive.
Right.
And like, so, that must have felt wild.
I mean, to be alive when all of a sudden you could send a message to someone and you could turn on a light bulb and you could drive, like that's incredible. We take those for granted. Now we're entering a period where there's at least 5 new technologies all converging at once, and Elon's pretty much at the center of all of them. And not to mention even Neuralink, not to mention Boring Company, like it's just incredible. And this is the hard part, because if you talk to someone just who's new to all this, you have to be very slow and careful, or you will overwhelm them very quickly, right? Just like even with rockets, it's like this rocket re-lands, you know?
Right.
But I won't even tell you about Starship yet.
Right.
You know?
But you can just overwhelm and overstimulate someone to be like, oh yeah, and this, oh yeah, and this, oh yeah, and the cars will drive themselves. Oh, and there'll probably be a robot in the car that can bring you stuff. Oh, and and then you're like, but wait, what does that mean? And for like jobs and stuff, it's like, no idea.
Yeah.
Right. So everyone wants to go like, okay,
hey, it's too
you're
much.
Nuts.
Right.
You're nuts. I don't have to think about that anymore.
Right.
That was some bad cognitive dissonance. Glad
on the way.
I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Right.
But it's like, that's not doing you any favors when it shows up at your doorstep.
If we go back to the 1910s or something, if you could have seen the car coming and said like, oh, maybe I'll start a chain of motels and I'll start a chain of,
I'll have a restaurant where the people can drive the cars up to the side of the building and we'll hand them their food. And everyone was just like, what? No, that can't work.
Where do you put the horse?
Yeah, exactly. And so I just feel like this is where we're sitting on this precipice. And nobody wants to look over the edge and see,
Well, and what's so frustrating is they get so upset at Elon because he's wrong by a year or two. Like, you didn't really land the rockets when you said you would. And you didn't. The cars aren't driving themselves yet. And it's like, yeah, you're not off by 20 years. You're off by 3.
Right.
But that's why it's like a long-term investment for me.
Right.
Is because, if I wanted a company to invest in for robots and for autonomous driving and for electric cars, how convenient that it's one company. And that if they fail at any of the one things, they still maybe will get the other 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Right.
And you're like, and each one of those, the multiples of which we've never seen the likes of which, it's like, that's how nuts it is.
Yeah, I mean, Elon's already said that the battery storage company will probably be bigger than the automotive, and that the, robot company will be bigger, and that the autonomy part will be bigger. And yet, when you say the word Tesla, everyone just talks about the 4-wheel cars.
Right. Well, because some of the other stuff isn't as sexy.
Well, it also
is sexy,
it
though.
hurts to think about.
It's just that, right. I mean,
it's scary.
Because we don't all know what a walking, talking robot is, it just doesn't.
Oh, well, the robots are sexy, but like, the energy storage is not as sexy.
Oh, that's so boring.
What I'm saying.
Yeah, that's just a box.
Although, having the freedom from war to have our own energy, in every country and not having to fight over it, that's pretty sexy.
The other day, we have our solar trailer sitting out there. You got to see it. And we were... kind of done working in there, and we have the air conditioning on, and we're walking out of there, and Zach was like, "Oh, shut off the air conditioner." I was like, "Why? We're not paying for it. The sun's shining on the solar panels on the roof. Well, who cares? Let it run."
Yeah.
When has that ever happened?
Right.
When have you ever gone like, "Who cares?"
That is kind of crazy.
And that's why we want to build a solar carport. It's like, oh, my next trip in my car will be free.
Wow. I will say I can't wait to have, a house with a garage. Right now I'm solely relying on the Supercharger, mostly because I have a little charge point. It's on the other side of the complex. It's really slow. It seems like the plug is never adjusted. I'll get a notification 30 minutes later, your thing is uncharged. So I don't know what's going on there, but it is slightly annoying to rely on just the Supercharger, even though it's 4 minutes away.
Oh, totally.
It's kind of annoying.
It's not really designed for that. Like, 90% of your charging should take place at work or at home, and
because it's going to be cheaper and more convenient at home.
Right. No, like when I was shopping around for apartments, I was like, I need to be able to plug in outside. So like when I pulled into my current apartment and there was a plug outside, I was just like, bingo. Forget what it looks like on the inside. All I care, but
I'm surprised you don't live here.
Well, We work,
feel like you're
we work
like
together.
doing stuff all the time.
We work together, but it's nice to go home.
Yeah.
Do you want to live with your boss? I don't know. No, but it was like, I know what you mean though. Like I have the benefit of being able to come here and have a level 2
Right,
charger
yeah.
just whenever I want.
Yeah.
So if I
Way more
forget to
convenient.
plug in, or if I had a long weekend of adventuring, I get to come home and plug in and
Right.
while I work. Great. Now I leave with a full battery. Or
Is it
whatever.
hard to be father-son dynamic?
We've worked really well together. Like we've done construction together, and I feel like when you've done construction, like we've built roofs together, for
Yeah.
instance. And when
We
you're
built this room.
Yeah.
Like
This
the roof,
room,
right.
and the whole room didn't
Right.
exist.
And it's leaking, so
We
you're
built
like,
that.
so you didn't do a good job on the roof. So like when you're working on a roof together, I feel like that you build up this trust,
Yeah.
and so I feel like that it's like the most special reason. I get teary eyed thinking about it, but yeah, being able to work with your son, I don't think there's much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
it's
that's
tough.
good.
It's tough.
It can be tough.
I
It's
was
tough.
gonna say because like I don't know.
There
if
are days.
I don't
Yeah.
know if I'd want my mom to be my boss.
Sure.
Okay, and I haven't even turned around. Wow.
Our little knickknacks
Yeah.
from
This is-
over the years.
Take it all in. Yeah.
Wow, this is really cool. I mean, I have a pretty cool, setup, but I think this is cooler. Okay, so you have one of the actual Boring Company flamethrowers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those
Got
are very fun.
Those
Yeah.
are fun. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay,
Tesla
some
tequila.
Tesla tequila.
Mhm.
Magic Spoon, you must be a sponsor.
Yep, they're sponsor.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. Got to have
Is
your
it
magic
good?
spoon. It is good. Yeah.
Is
We'll
it
get
really
you. We'll
good?
get you a box.
Here.
There you go.
Here's the boxes that I have to grab when we advertise.
Nice.
I'm just keeping them on the side.
Okay.
This is a battery that we built
Wow.
out of cells that were once in a
Modem.
many modems.
Wow.
Which we used to power a lawnmower.
We've got a Tesla beer over there.
Yeah.
Haven't opened it yet.
You have the Time magazine with Elon.
Yep, we
Yeah.
have my first really shitty weld.
Wow.
Pretty bad. I've gotten better.
Well,
Yeah.
takes time and practice.
This is from my cousin.
Oh.
She wanted me to put it there.
Very
This is from a
nice.
fan. Somebody made a
Oh,
Tesla
that's so cool.
logo out of Legos.
Yep,
And
I've gotten some fan stuff too.
I was supposed to be number 3 to go through the boring tunnel, but they never let me through. So they owe me one.
Oh no.
but,
All these senators came and cut the line. So
Oh man.
Yeah.
you gotta let senators cut the line.
yeah, you do.
And
Cool.
I 3D printed this way back in the day, and it's still bad looking.
Oh wow. That's kind of crazy. It's 3D printed.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, we
That's
got
pretty
some
good.
stuff. We got
Yeah.
some stuff.
That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
we got Starman, comics.
Yeah, I got all the electric cars I can ever find. Matchbox cars.
Yeah.
As long as they're electric, I get them.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
very cool.
See,
well,
you just have to have a hoarding problem.
yeah. Yeah. Well, no, I thank you so much for letting me
Oh, thank you so
come
much
over
for coming out.
and take your time. I know you could be doing other things, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And where can people find your channel or channels? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Yeah, just Google Now You Know on the YouTubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, we're doing our Tesla Time news show every Tuesday. So
Every Tuesday. Now that probably helps to have like a firm schedule, correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, for the viewers.
I think so.
And
I
for
don't know.
us.
And for us.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It's nice to have a ritual to a
Some-
certain degree.
Right.
yeah. Something I need to learn how to implement. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I thought this was like a really easy conversation. We were just flowing.
We have lots to talk
We were
about.
flowing. So awesome. Well, thank you guys. See you in the next video.
Hi,
What are we
welcome
looking
to
at?
our solar mobile trailer.
Yeah. Under construction.
Version 1.
version
It's a little messy,
still
but
in beta.
we tested it the other day on a in-depth and it worked.
So come on in. We'll
Yeah,
show
come on
you
in.
how it works.
I also did another video with Zac and Jesse touring their solar mobile trailer. And they also showed me a car that they converted to an electric vehicle, this MG Midget. So I will be sharing another video for you guys with both of those elements added. But I had so much fun hanging out with the Now You Know team, and I'm excited to announce that they've invited me to produce a SpaceX segment on their show every week. So make sure to check out their channel because you'll probably see me on it. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you want to take this a step further and really support Ellie in Space, please consider signing up for my Patreon or on my X account, formerly known as Twitter. Revenue has been really quite down for content creators lately, and so it would really mean a lot, even if you can only do it for a month or two, if you don't mind checking it out and considering subscribing to support the channel. Thank you guys so much, as always, for the support for Ellie in Space, and I'll see you in the next video.